Hey, this is Michael Lindsay from Vital MX. We just finished up out of Kahia Creek for our 2016 250F Shootout. We took our 5 test riders out with all 6 bikes in the manufacturers, and we spent the day on them, and we're going to give you our results in a short and sweet format. Starting off with our 6th place bike is the RMZ 250. For 2016, the Suzuki did receive a ton of upgrades, even though it doesn't visually look a lot different. A lot of upgrades with the engine, the chassis, even the suspension components. The positives behind the Suzuki is the new KYB suspension. It has the most adjustability in the class. It is an air fork with the PSF2 unit. A lot of the riders really like the chassis. It's very nimble, very light, easy to get around on. The negativity is even with the large amount of engine upgrades, a lot of riders still felt like it was kind of on the back of the pack when it came to actual performance. It's a very broad overall engine, very easy to ride, but compared to everything else, it just doesn't feel stout enough in a lot of situations. On the positive, a lot of our lower end riders did like the bike, just kind of for an entry-level guy because it is so easy to manage. Honestly, the Suzuki does have a lot of potential. It does have an aged look and a little bit of an awkward bar bend, but with some more power, it could really be a contender. Coming in the 5th spot is the Husqvarna FC 250. Starting off with the bright side, everybody really likes the hydraulic clutch, Brembo brakes, the electric start. The bike is extremely light for 2016. A little bit of the negativity can come mostly from the 4CS fork. While it is improved this year, a lot of people agree when you go a little bit stiffer, there's definitely some harshness on some smaller chop that can create a little bit of an issue with the front end. Everybody really commented the front end felt very planted. A little bit of mixed review overall with the chassis compared to, say, the KTM. A lot of guys were kind of 50-50 whether the chassis felt stiffer and it was better or it felt a little bit looser and worse. As for the engine, it's definitely a great mid to top performer. A lot of riders agree the harder you ride this bike, the more you rev it out, the more aggressive you feel with it. It has decent bottom end, not as good as maybe 1 or 2 of the other bikes in class, not quite as much roll on, but if you definitely can hang it out, the Husqvarna can be a really good bike. Coming in a close 4th place was the Kawasaki KX 250F. It's definitely one of the least improved bikes in the class over the past couple years, but it's still very competitive. Everybody really liked the response from the engine, although for actual complete performance, it's about middle of the pack at this time. The biggest complaint probably comes from the front fork. The Showa SFF unit is a little bit stiff on spring rate. A lot of the lighter riders in the group felt like it just felt a little bit harsh. It wouldn't load the front and the corners, which caused you to rear steer the bike a lot, which gained mixed reviews overall. To try to remedy this and get a more complete steering characteristic from the bike, a lot of the guys would open up the preload, try to get the front to settle more. Another positive note with the Kawasaki is the adjustable rider cockpit. It has the most handlebar bar mount options, the adjustable pegs, allows you to really open up or shrink the rider's cockpit as needed. Overall, the Kawasaki doesn't do anything particularly amazing in 2016, but also nothing that's really negative, so it just kind of falls into the middle of the pack. Coming in 3rd place, and probably the largest surprise of the year for most of the test riders, was the 2016 Honda CRF 250R. A lot of guys have kind of complained about the Honda's power the last couple years, so they made a group of engine changes which actually made a very large difference, giving it very competitive low to mid horsepower and torque. It still falls a little bit flat on top as the Honda has the past couple years, but definitely an improvement over 15. As for the chassis, everybody loves the light and nimble feel. A couple of the riders still feel like you're a little too much up on the front tire, like it's a little bit twitchy at times. But overall, the suspension components have also improved in 16 and given the riders a little bit more adjustability. A little bit negative for the Honda is something they've experienced with their newer chassis past couple years. The bike feels a little bit high in the rear. It also can feel a little bit cramped in the rider's compartment, but also there's a few riders that really like the natural feel they get from the Honda. Slotting in just above the Honda in 2nd place is the KTM 250 SXF. Also a huge improvement in 2016, just pretty much an overall revamp. The bike is amazing mid to top, not quite as good off the bottom end as a couple bikes in the class, but definitely makes the most horsepower. Everybody really felt that this bike was one of the best when you pushed it all around the track. The suspension is greatly improved. Rear end offers great traction. It squats really well, especially Kahia dealing with a lot of the high-speed chatter chop. The rear had great rebound, and it would just really settle and keep the back end of the bike tracking. At the front of the bike with the 4CS fork, there's still that little bit of an issue with harshness when it's stiffened. For some of the lighter riders, though, they were okay with the stock setting and able to get away with it. The bigger the guy we had on, though, the more this became an issue. Of course, everybody that stepped off the bike really just loves the brakes and the electric start. One of the only real negatives, too, is the stock shift lever is really long on the 250, and a lot of riders were complaining about missing shifts, which is definitely a little bit key and important on the 250 when you're usually grabbing gear coming up the face of a jump. Taking the victory in 2016 is the Yamaha YZ250F. Everybody unanimously agreed that this had the best overall engine in the class. It has the most amazing low to mid response that almost has like a mini 450 feel to it. You can definitely ride the Yamaha a gear higher anywhere on the track. This really equates to so many things. It helps how the rear end tracks. You're just in that nice low to mid power where it just really wants to lay on. At the same time, though, it has very competitive top end pull that puts it near the top of the class in that respect. The other thing that everybody pretty much really liked about it was the suspension. The KYB SSS spring fork is the best overall package for everybody. It takes the least amount of changes for different weights and different rider speeds. The only real negativity with the Yamaha comes with the overall width. A few of the riders definitely still feel it's big up front, and a few guys said they can feel like they can fight it a little bit in some of the tighter corners, although the bigger brakes this year have really helped try to get it into those tight sections. But if you can just rail outside in a couple places, you can really just impress yourself with how much speed you can carry on the Yamaha. As we mentioned, this is definitely the short and sweet version. If you want to get in-depth and check out all the dyno charts, the data logging, all the riders' individual opinions and their scoring, check out the in-depth 250F Shootout article on the homepage or click the link below the video. Thanks for joining us for the 2016 250 Shootout. Make sure to check back in a year's time for the 2017s.